You may be noticing something different about the way I'm dressed this morning. I'm not wearing my shorts and my Crocs, and it's not because it's cold. Tonight or tomorrow, we've got a tropical storm that's supposed to be coming through, and I'm getting ready to seed some pastures. And after I do that, I'm going to bush hog so that we'll get better germination on the newer seeds, reduce competition of the grasses that are there, and so that whatever plant material is there can help mulch the seeds so that they'll hold a little bit more moisture after it rains. But to do that, I've got to fix the bush hog. While I was bush hogging this pasture a couple weeks back, I was driving the bush hog through here, and the bush hog came off the tractor. Pulled the PTO shaft. I don't think it messed it up. This goes in there like that, and there's a pin that goes through there that's sheared off. It's a little cotter pin, or maybe a hitch pin, I don't know. I was just driving along. I didn't turn sharply so that the tires hit the frame of the bush hog or anything. I'm gonna go heat this up and bend it back, and then we're either gonna get a new or drill that one out and put a heavier pin in there. I'm not sure what we're gonna do. My dad's gonna be here in an hour or so with the seed. He's gonna help me with this, and then I'm gonna go broadcast that seed before the rain comes in. I'm not sure if we'll get all this done in 3 or 4 hours or not. We'll see. I've got the truck out here with a torch, and let me say, I am not particularly skilled in what I'm about to do. In college, when I roofed, I used a cutting torch a lot to cut and did some welding. But this is well beyond my expertise. One thing Rick told me, though, is instead of using the cutting torch head, he said that I should use this heating head. I've never used one, have no idea what I'm doing. He gave me a little guidance on how to use it. Anyway, I'm gonna set it up and move on. My dad should be here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. He's getting here a little bit later than I had hoped. I don't know that he's gonna be particularly patient while recording videos, and I think I need his help with this more than anything else. So I'll grab what I can on video. There he is right there. This isn't gonna be the best video because of the shadows. I've got a ball peen hammer, but I think that wrench I think is gonna be what we need.
You ever did stuff like this?
Sir?
Have you ever did this?
Not anything quite this thick. I mean, that's 1/2 inch flat steel.
I believe a sledgehammer. I don't know.
Yeah, it's harder to control with a sledgehammer. But that may be what we have to resort to. I don't know. I think this needs to be twisted this way, and the whole thing needs to come this way, and this needs to twist. I'm gonna need you to watch for me. I'm gonna set the thing down. If it doesn't fit, just get a bigger hammer.
I'm gonna just stay out of the way.
Here we go. So if you can just hold it off the ground. And
It's going. Doing good. That's it. You just gotta get closer. It's gotta be pinned in some more, doesn't it? I think that's too far. You got it?
yeah, I think so. Let's take the pin. What I do with the pin? And use the table mounted vise in the shop. We got to go put that stuff up anyway, and then you can go on from there. Let's make sure that the PTO shaft isn't boogered up, that we don't need anything for it. Again, I'm sorry for the poor camera angles. Initially, I thought that the large 1-inch pin that I showed you at the beginning of this video was held in place by a cotter pin through a hole at the end of it. When I got to the shop and drove the broken pin out of the hole, I realized that this was a roll pin. In my little experience, roll pins tend to be much stronger than cotter pins, so we got another roll pin from Rick's shop and put it in. The next task was connecting the bush hog to the big tractor. It was fairly easy, especially with my little John Deere loader holding the bush hog up. Then we had to connect the hydraulics. One of the hydraulic connections gives me trouble every time I try to connect it. These old international hydraulic connections are kind of troublesome sometimes. And then one of the hydraulic connections was leaking, so we had to tighten it up. Finally, connecting the PTO to the bush hog of the tractor was the final task, and this time it was fairly easy. It worked out quite well. I'm on my way to get the tractor so I can seed those cover crops. And I'll tell you what, it is taking a lot more time than I expected to fix that bush hog. At the same time, I'm a little surprised we got it done. And it was much easier than I expected. I just never know what to expect. So I'm gonna put the broadcast spreader on the tractor, fill it up with seed, and go put it out. See if we can beat this rain. I'm broadcasting on two different parts of the field south of Dowdle Road. You may have seen that in the previous video. Both of them are roughly 5 acres each. I'm using about 250 pounds of cereal rye, 50 pounds of daikon radish, and 50 pounds of crimson clover. These aren't the perfect seeding rates, but it's pretty close enough. One reason that I'm planting so thinly, especially with the daikons, usually rather than 10 pounds to the acre, I'd put about 15, maybe even 20 pounds to the acre broadcasting. But these are the main seeds I want germinating. They offer a burst of nutrition while we're feeding hay this winter. The hay is pretty decent hay, but the cattle, if they're on it very long, will lose body condition, and so having those daikons should help their body condition dramatically. Because the seeds of these two crops are smaller, they usually don't broadcast as far as the heavier seed like the cereal rye. And so often I'll get concentrated strips of those smaller seeded crops if they're growing. And if that happens, I don't want them too thick. Now I'm planting the crops in two different areas south of Dowdle Road. One of them is on lower ground that'll get wet and soggy, especially come December, January, February, when we start getting more rain. I'm planting here though because it'll be easy to irrigate those crops if we continue to have a dry fall, and cereal rye, particularly if it germinates well, should put on a good bit of growth in that amount of time. So that's the lower part of the field, and it had a lot of material that I had to bush hog to help mulch the soil and offer light to the seeds after they were broadcast. The other part of the field is up on higher ground, and we should be able to get good growth into March or even April with it. It didn't have as much weedy growth as the lower field did, in large part because we had some sorghum sudan grass and other cover crops that prevented a lot of the weeds from growing. I expect the sorghum sudan grass to still regrow fairly well until frost, and that should give us some additional high-quality forage that we graze with the daikons, the cereal rye, and the crimson clover if they perform well. So in the broadcast spreader behind me, you can see that I brought my chest-mounted solo spreader and a bag of Durana clover. What I'm going to do, and so I'm going to broadcast that Durana clover right here. There are two ponds down here in this lowland, and the dirt used to dig the ponds out was kind of mounded up. So I'm going to plant that Durana clover on top of those mounds. It'll be higher in elevation, and it should thrive in that higher elevation spot. And in the spring, when it's blooming, as the cows graze it, they should scatter that seed all over this field out here. This is the second of the 5 acre fields, and my dad's bush hogging it now. It should leave a decent mulch over it. We're bush hogging low to slow down the regrowth so that the cereal rye, turnips, clovers, and all that can grow up better. Off in the distance, if you can see way back in there, I mowed that across the ditch and on the other side of those ponds already. and did the same thing. That stuff was a lot thicker. It left a lot more on the ground. We'll see what it does. But it's been a little chaotic getting everything done today.